I really think it's awesome. All right. Who may or may not be awesome, we'll have to wait and see, is a new LSU defensive coordinating candidate. As Adam Rittenberg, and I confirmed this morning, it says that LSU is set to interview today Durante Jones for the defensive coordinator job. Jones is someone who has an interesting resume, right? Like we talked about on Friday, we had a weird kind of conversation that almost seemed to work against itself in some ways, right? Because on Friday, we basically discussed, okay, what do you want to see in a defensive coordinator? And then we said that ultimately, I don't know that any of that matters because like they just have to get it right. There's going to be no hire that they are going to make that is going to make fans happy and just be accepted off the bat. Whoever gets this job is just going to have to prove it come fall time. That said, I don't think that can stop us from kind of prognosticating on what the parameters of our search would be. And look, ultimately, the worst thing you can do, I think, is to really back yourself into a corner and tie yourselves 100% black and white to these kind of hard sticking points. But I don't think there's a problem with kind of having guidelines, right? Or maybe I keep using this phrase, putting your thumb on the scale for certain traits and attributes that you think you could be successful. And for what it's worth, this is not science, okay? This is just my opinion, and this is kind of how I've viewed the search since the beginning. For what it is worth, when you look at Durante Jones's resume and who this cat's recommended by, how he got here to this interview in Baton Rouge this morning, he does seem like exactly the type of cat that I've been wanting. Now, that's not to say that it's going to work or not, right? I have no idea if it's going to work. You never know if a hire is going to work, but especially when you get this deep in the process, it's tough to feel great about anything being a sure thing. So I'm not saying this is going to work, but in terms of check boxes that I wanted marked that I think set this guy up to have a lot of success, I think he hits those, right? And look, ultimately how the interview goes today will be what decides whether he gets the job or not. This is the first step. Does he get called for back? How long does he stick around? I mean, just look at old boy from Mississippi State. Who was it? Zach Arnett. He came to town. I think he was gone like 2 hours later. The interview went horribly. And that is what it is. It's just how it goes. You got to put them on the board and see how they do. If Jones' interview goes well, I think there's actually a lot of reason to be excited. He's young. He is a fast riser. When you look at who he has worked in the past, he coached secondary with Aranda at Wisconsin. That was an elite defense that they had there. He's been the secondary coach with Mike Zimmer for a few years. Of course, although the Vikings defense was what it was this year, for much of that time, they have been elite. I think the bigger point there is probably, look, Mike Zimmer is a defensive coach, right? He is meticulously detailed. Earlier this hour or last hour, we had Verge Osbury talking about when they're looking at these coaches right now, these defensive candidates, they want guys who are going to be able to communicate that responsibility. Basically, make sure that everybody understands what their job is at all times. If you're coaching for Mike Zimmer defensively, that secondary especially, you best believe that you're communicating what your guys are supposed to do, right? I've said a lot of times that I would like this hire to be someone now at this point, once you get past your Freemans, you get past your Ryan Nielsen's, I would like for this hire to be somebody's big break, even though I guess it would have applied to Nielsen in a lot of ways. That would apply to Jones. This would be a huge step up in his career. And then when you dig a bit further, you see that he even has the benefit of local Louisiana ties. He started his career coaching high school football right here in Louisiana. Young cat, raised in the modern defensive theory of the game, very good resume in terms of who he's worked for, who's recommending him, Dave Aranda, Mike Zimmer. Right, you went back to the Joe Brady well on the offensive side of the ball. It would be his big break. He's not going to take this lightly. He has Louisiana high school recruiting ties. Hey, if the internet goes well, or the internet never goes well. The interview goes well, Durante Jones could be your next LSU defensive coordinator. And I'm like, look, man, these are just my opinions. Like I said, for what it's worth, I'm not saying you should be excited or not. It's just that I like a lot of the traits here. I like if these are, he seems to fit the parameters that we were looking for. And so in my opinion, that shows me that I think LSU is moving in the right direction philosophically with this hire. So I'll be waiting on the edge of my seat to see how this interview goes. Right now, I'm be waiting on the edge of my seat to hear from Shea Dixon next here on Off the Bench.